So good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Thursday night Anamkara meditation program. With all my heart, with all my love, I welcome you to our program tonight. Now, this program is all about coming into the state of consciousness that's already there, where we get to know the infinitude, we get to know our own divine self. And it's already fully present. You are that. And one of the ancient, what's called the Mahavakyas, great statements from the ancient Upanishads, is Tattvamasi, thou art that. Right? That's our nature. And it's really our identification with the mind that brings us into the field of suffering. So through practices, we let go and reclaim the boundlessness of our own nature, the boundless heart, the boundless consciousness, the boundless presence. So thank you for coming and bring the fullness of yourself and bring your commitment to practice, to being ones who do the practices so that they can come to know this directly, and then day by day we live it into the world for the benefit of everyone, as well as for the relief it gives to our own mind to know the truth of who we are. So that's the essence of satsang, keeping the company of the truth, which is what this program is all about. And we start with the opening mantras as a way of directly invoking that through the power of mantra. Mantra as a throb of the infinite, a throb of our own self. And so these opening mantras are a way of invoking that and helping the mind to quiet and helping our awareness to step aside from the mind, whether it's active or not. And then we do the opening mantras and we just sit for a few moments in that stillness. The stillness and the silence and the emerging sense of the depth of that stillness and that silence. The sense of the embrace of that stillness and silence is the gift of mantra. So we'll begin with the opening mantras. Shrimate Kali and Devi ki jai, Gajananam Bhuta Ganari Sevitam, Kapita Jambo Palacharu Bhakshanam, Umasutam Shokam Vinashakarakam, Namami Vigneshwara Parapankajam, Shri Ganeshaya Namaha, Shri Ganeshaya Namaha, Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamandaya Purnamevavashishate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shrimate Kali and Devi ki jai. And once again, with all my heart, I welcome you to our program this evening. This evening's program happens in the midst of this major holiday in the Hindu tradition, and it's called Navratri. It means the 9 nights of celebrating the Great Mother, the great goddess, Ma Kali, Ma Durga, in all her different forms. And so it started last week on Saturday, and it runs then for 9 days. We're on the 6th day. It's a great Devi celebrated, Katyayani, one of the ferocious faces of the Great Mother, a protectress who dispenses with demons and sets people free. So it really captures the nature of the archetype of the divine feminine, the Great Mother. And that who do we turn to when we're looking for love, for solace, for comfort, for protection? Like a child, we run to our mother, right? And that's the Great Mother in all her different forms. And she's known across all cultures. Every great spiritual tradition has different ways of depicting the Great Mother, the great goddess. And it's that sense of that divine presence that reaches out, comforts, sets us free, holds us in its divine embrace, that humanity has turned to forever. The great Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung, who wrote a lot about archetypes, these way of talking about the many different forms that a particular sort of resonance of consciousness can take across different cultures. And he would talk about the archetypes of God, and that the different figures that we have for God, from God the Father, God the Old Man, different masculine forms, Shiva. All these are the sort of the masculine face of the archetype of the infinite. The archetype of the infinite has the feminine face as well, and carries the function of the feminine, meaning relatedness, the loving tenderness, the ferocity, the embrace. So the Divine Mother is invoked in all these different ways in her many different forms around the world. Many different names and forms in the Hindu tradition, many different names and forms of Tare, the feminine face of the divine in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. Many different faces of the divine in the Middle East and in Europe and in the Americas. So she's known around the world and worshipped and loved. And when we have the clarity of vision, we can see that everyone is a way that she has sort of presented herself to humanity in order to give them access. Now, our ordinary mind, well, the mind is a form. Form loves form. It seeks form to connect with, whether it's the forms of God, forms of the Great Mother, forms of love. I mean, the mind is form and is attracted to form. And what's unique about many of these great forms that appear in the mystical traditions around the world is that the forms of the infinite, the forms of the divine, masculine and feminine, well, they're unique in the sense that they're not simply a thought form. They emerge from beyond the mind. And so when we become absorbed in them, the contemplation, the meditation, become absorbed in the presence of that, we can go beyond the forms, go into the essence, the heart essence of the infinite, the divine, the one, beyond masculine and feminine. But the mind, well, it needs a form to start out with, right? The formless, that's like, seems so far away for the poor mind. Of course, it's not far away. It's closer than your breath, right? But for the mind, it seems so far away. So it needs a ladder of various forms that help us get into the state where all the forms are seen as one form. All the forms of the mother are one mother. All the forms of the divine are one divine. All the forms of creation are the one divine, including yourself. So that's where the practices, that's where the entering the depth of practice takes us is into that state, right? So that we can know that directly and more live that into the world. Because it's all about being able to then sustain that in everyday life, have our vision transformed so that what we see, even as we see forms, we're seeing the dance of the divine as those forms. And that's why the great mystics would talk about that kind of transformation of vision, that kind of transformation of knowing is what relieves us from suffering. Right? Because we see beyond even suffering as a form. Not that suffering on the bodily level or suffering emotionally won't exist, but when you add the boundlessness, the infinitude of being, then any given suffering is diminished just because now we know the infinite simultaneously. We're not caught in just the suffering. Suffering doesn't have to pervade our vision. Our vision can be of the infinite that also embraces, holds, has actually become the suffering as well. So practices, contemplation, doing kinds of meditative and chants and mantras is a way of being able to transform our vision so we can know that directly. It's not just a set of words. And so that's why we make use of the practices, and especially practice of mantra. As mantra as a sound form of the infinite, a vibration, a throb of the boundless one, contains that boundless consciousness, contains the boundless love, the boundless compassion, the boundless patience, the infinite presence that is the root of who you are. We will now know that and know that moment by moment. So we do the practices. And by making use of mantra, mantra is like a tuning fork, helps to tune this instrument of mind and body to the level and frequency of knowing that is the infinite. The infinite is infinite knowing. So tonight we're going to be chanting, especially because it's Navratri. And in Navratri, we want to invoke the Great Mother in all her different forms and celebrate that. And know that throb of her essential nature, that throb of loving consciousness, pervades this moment, pervades your mind, has become the mind, pervades your body, has become the body, pervades your life, it's become your life. This is what we need to know. So everyone needs to know. So we stop fighting over the crumbs left for the poor mind lost in ignorance. There's such an abundance that we can tap into. No reason to fight. No reason. There's such fullness. We can live in that fullness. So we invoke the Great Mother to bring us to that, to help transform the world so that we as humanity aren't living out ignorance and fear. We can live out the fullness of wisdom and love, compassion. Bring that into the world. So we're going to be doing a chant to Mahadevi, the great goddess, right? And this is a chant we've done before, and it's a chant that has the names of the Great Mother from around the world, from many different cultures. And so we're invoking her around the world, right? Because the whole world is held in her embrace. The whole world knows of her existence. So we want to invoke that fully for ourselves. So we have that experience. We're drenched in that presence, in that love. And we can live it into our lives. So we're going to start. We're going to chant this for a while. It takes a bit to go through this. There's many different verses. And then at the end, we'll just sit in her divine embrace. That's the stillness. That's the silence of meditation. We're invoking that living presence that goes beyond names and forms. Fully present right here, right now. She's your every breath, She is your every thought. So when we sit in meditation, we'll carry that state, we'll carry that knowing that everything we see, whether it's a thought, a sensation, a feeling, a memory, doesn't matter. What we see is her. Her, taking on all forms. She's the great mother. What does she give birth to? All forms, all creation, every level of it. All her, all her. So leave behind the mind that gets involved in the particulars and turn your awareness to the one who's given birth to it all, holds it all, is living right here, right now. So now we'll begin. Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah. Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah. Jaya Mata Kali Devi. Jaya Mata Durga Devi. Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah. Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah. Jaya Saraswati Devi. Jaya Saraswati Devi. Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah. Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah. Jaya Kundalini Shakti. Jaya Kundalini Shakti. Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah. Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah. Jaya Annapurna Devi. Jaya Annapurna Devi. Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah. Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah. Jaya Jaya Parvati Devi. Jaya Jaya Parvati Devi. Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah. Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah. Jaya Mahalakshmi Devi. Jaya Mahalakshmi Devi. Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah. Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah. Jaya Jaya Bhairavi Devi. Jaya Jaya Bhairavi Devi. Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah. Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah. Jaya Jaya Chamundi Devi. Jaya Jaya Chamundi Devi. Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah. Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah. Jaya Jaya Ganga Mahadevi. Jaya Jaya Ganga Mahadevi. Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah. Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah. Jaya Jaya Jamuna Devi. Jaya Jaya Jamuna Devi. Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah. Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah. Jaya Jaya Chandrika Devi. Jaya Jaya Chandrika Devi. Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah. Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah. Jaya Jaya Karuna Devi, Jaya Jaya Karuna Devi, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Jaya Kalyani Devi, Jaya Jaya Kalyani Devi, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Jaya Sita Devi, Jaya Jaya Sita Devi, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Jaya Radha Devi, Jaya Jaya Radha Devi, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Jaya Rudrani Devi, Jaya Jaya Rudrani Devi, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Jaya Brahmani Devi, Jaya Jaya Brahmani Devi, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Jaya Oma Devi, Jaya Jaya Oma Devi, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Jaya Tare Mahadevi, Jaya Jaya Tare Mahadevi, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Jaya Kali and Devi, Jaya Jaya Kali and Devi, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Jaya Kanan Devi, Jaya Jaya Kanan Devi, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Jaya Nana Devi, Jaya Jaya Nana Devi, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Jaya Isis Devi, Jaya Jaya Isis Devi, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Jaya Shekinah Devi, Jaya Jaya Shekinah Devi, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Mother Mary Devi, Jaya Mother Mary Devi, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Mary Magdalena Devi, Jaya Mary Magdalena Devi, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Jaya Hekate Devi, Jaya Jaya Hekate Devi, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Jaya Demeter Devi, Jaya Jaya Demeter Devi, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Jaya Kare Devi, Jaya Jaya Kare Devi, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Jaya Sophia Devi, Jaya Jaya Sophia Devi, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Jaya Freya Devi, Jaya Jaya Freya Devi, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Black Madonna Devi, Jaya Black Madonna Devi, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Jaya Brigid Devi, Jaya Jaya Brigid Devi, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Grandmother Spirit, Jaya Grandmother Spirit, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Our Lady of Guadalupe, Jaya Our Lady of Guadalupe, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Jaya Pele Devi, Jaya Jaya Pele Devi, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Mama Mahadevi, Mama Mahadevi, Mama Mahadevi, Mama Mahadevi, Mama Mahadevi, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Mama Mahadevi, Mama Mahadevi, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah. Mama Mahadevi, Mama Mahadevi, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah, Jaya Kali Durga Namo Namah. So we take refuge in the Great Mother, the Divine, the One who illumines every thought, every sensation, every memory, the luminous awareness, always present, and illumines the direct knowing that all that you see, all that you feel, all that you know, are forms of the one, dancing as the many, moment by moment. Take refuge. Take refuge in the one, the living presence of the divine. And know freedom from being bound by the many thoughts, the many memories. Letting go, letting go. Let it go into the one. If the mind moves, invite it to move with mantra, with Om Kalima, Om Kalima, Om Kalima. Let it dissolve all thoughts, all sense of separation. Come to rest in her own self. So we'll close with this chant to Tare, Ma Tare, to the Tare mantra, Om Tare, Tuttare, Ture Soha, invoking the Great Mother who leaps forward to free all beings of suffering. Om Tare, Tuttare, Ture Soha. 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 So we end with this prayer. And may all our practices truly benefit everyone. And may all beings know complete freedom from suffering. And namaste. So, taking refuge in the arms of the divine, however we may think of her, sense her, imagine her. She's our very self, the self of all, the one who gives birth to it all, holds it all, and draws it all back into her sweet, loving embrace. So keep coming home to that truth, the truth of who you are, the truth of who all beings are, all creation. So we treat all with the love and respect and the living presence of Great Mother. So I want to thank you all for coming this evening, bringing the power of your practices, the power of your presence, and being ones who do practice and then live the fruits of those practices into your everyday lives. So sublime. Thank you. Thank you. This is what transforms the world, holding the highest consciousness, our hearts and minds, so that it informs our actions, our thoughts. And I thank you for the many ways you support Anamkar and share our e-newsletter and make donations. So thank you. Thank you. And we'll be back again in 2 weeks. I look forward to seeing you then. Namaste.